If you can hear us talking and it doesn't sound like absolute garbage, then Merry Christmas. Just guys hanging out, happen to be friends, They happen to be dads, and they got some good questions. Joined by Coach and Professor, and I'm John, and we're going to talk about, I guess, the current state of things and what the fuck is going on outside these days. That is the question. I couldn't tell you what's going on outside. I haven't left my house in almost a month, aside from I took one trip into the woods and I rode my bike around for a while. And now apparently that is a solid bad idea, according to all sorts of internet articles.
Oh, yeah, because you can like transmit worse when you're exerting yourself.
Yeah, because I'm all huffing and puffing going up them hills. So I guess I'm a terrible dad because I brought my daughter with me to do it. But that was like 2 weeks ago. I mean, you know, I didn't know as much as I do now.
Yeah, so it's fine as long as you don't know any better.
Right. Like back in February when we had this gigantic choral concert and there was at least 400 or 500 people trapped inside an auditorium for 2+ hours breathing the air. It's fine. We don't know any better yet.
Well, to be fair, I think listening to that choral concert was probably more detrimental to your health than COVID-19.
Au contraire, it was actually really good, and I was impressed.
Yeah.
Right. That's fair.
That is the one big difference between choral concerts and COVID-19 is that choral concerts are like really good for old people.
Right. Yes.
And they're thankfully not contagious.
No, they're not. If anything, they create less choral concerts the more you see of them.
It's its own antibody. So yeah, I've been out of the house, but not out of my neighborhood in almost 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
Thankfully for me, I enjoy my neighborhood and I have enough here to keep me busy, keep me satisfied. But yeah, I haven't been in the car in that amount of time. So that's a little different. That's a little strange.
Yeah. The last time I went in the car, we had to take our 17-year-old cat to be euthanized.
Oh.
That was fun.
That was during this thing?
Yeah, that was Monday.
Oh.
So, was it Saturday? Yeah, that was Monday of this week.
What was that? Was that Sebi?
No, God, no. Stop it. Take it back.
Was it not Sebe?
It was not. That was a little-known other cat named Emma. But yeah, she was old as hell, stopped eating altogether. It was really hard and terrible. And yeah, so that was the last time I went in the car.
Oh, that's good to reminisce about all the fun things we used to do.
This is really depressing.
We stuck at home.
Yeah. Stuff, yeah.
I'm so glad we came back together to talk.
Well, the good thing is that at the vet's office, no one was allowed to go in unless you were having a pet euthanized, in which case they brought you a mask and let you go in the building.
Oh, that's great news.
Sit on the curb and wait like a bunch of chumps. And then they give you back your pet alive.
You know how to paint a silver lining on things there, Sean. So, Professor, what shitty things have happened to you?
Really nothing shitty. I mean, I've been to the grocery store a couple of times, and that's anxiety inducing.
What's that experience been like?
Well, actually, it was better the second time. The first time was extremely long, comically expensive, and just, I don't know, like there's no way to stay 6 feet apart from people when you're trying to like pass some old lady in the aisle. You know, the first time I went was, gosh, that was about 3 weeks ago now. So at the time, people weren't really like, it was still, at least around here anyway, there was still a lot of that attitude of like, that's not really happening here, you know?
Right.
But this most recent time was just a couple of days ago, and like, I mean, everybody was wearing masks. So
Oh, you included?
yeah,
Homemade?
yeah, I had like one of those. Do you know? I don't know if you ever watched the show Survivor. They used to give the contestants like those stretchy little buff things that you could wear as like a bandana or even as like a tube top or something.
It's
I
like
have something like
the
that.
neck of a turtleneck.
Sort of, and then
Yeah.
yeah, so I like double it over, so it's double thickness, and then just like, yeah.
Yep.
Yep. I
I
know
mean,
of what you speak.
it's kind of rudimentary, but I mean, I don't know. I guess it's worth something.
It just makes the virus work a little harder.
Yeah.
That's
Makes
right.
it earn it. Yeah.
Well, apparently, grocery stores now, at least the one that my wife went to today, they have it set up where they have, spacers. You're supposed to stay 6 feet apart, but also they have arrows directing the direction you're supposed to go to down each particular aisle. So it's only a
Oh,
one way.
okay.
Oh.
So
That's a
they're
good
they're
idea.
attempting to put systems into place.
Yeah.
But the moment one person, doesn't pay attention or doesn't give a shit, it just throws everything else out the
Yeah.
window.
So why is this one so different than all the other pandemics that happened, like that were pretty detrimental too, like the swine flu and the West Nile virus and
SARS,
and
right?
about other shit that apparently were super fucking lethal, but like I don't remember ever hearing the term social distancing until like
Yeah.
a month ago.
Well, at least one of them, maybe it was H1N1. I think it was like maybe a relatively high mortality rate, but it wasn't airborne. Like I think at least one of those was like much harder to transmit. This is like so easy to transmit.
I see.
That's my understanding too, as far as the major difference, right?
Yeah.
That and as a society, we're much more woke.
Ah,
Mm.
well, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, we use words like woke now. So
Right.
Yeah, in the past tense for the present tense.
that's right.
Does
True.
it make your head hurt every time you hear it, Professor?
It just doesn't. And no, it doesn't, because that's how language works all the time.
Okay, good.
No, I
Have
mean, I
either
don't
of you-
use it, but
Yeah, I don't like it either. Have either of you watched that episode about?
that's not what I said. I didn't say I didn't like it.
I
This is being recorded. I'm a linguist.
Play it back.
that explained show on Netflix, and they had an episode about pandemics, and I think it was just last year, but they talk about it. It's kind of weird to watch now, where you're in the middle of one. It's like, oh yeah, that's happening, neat, you know.
Yeah.
But just they explained like the spread of some of them and where they came from, and it was interesting to see that had we given a fuck, we probably could have avoided it, but we don't have quite enough caring left, I guess, to stop the source of it, because several of them came from those wet markets in China, and apparently it's like, let's let that keep going. Like knowing that that's where the COVID-19 came from, and then hearing that several of these other pretty intense viruses came from the same place, and that they were allowed to be opened again. It's like, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting is one word for it.
I guess this is a human reaction to no one really gets that we're the guests on the planet and we don't run the show.
Yeah. Well, we're just one of many guests on the planet, and some of the
Right.
other guests are tiny but deadly.
And if you trap them in cages and kill them in front of people and squish all their different diseases together and then spew them out, it causes a ruckus.
Is that how it happened? I don't...
I mean,
How the show put it, ruckus?
yes, it's a ruckus.
Yeah. There's a hootenanny leading to a ruckus.
Yeah.
So what kind of silver linings have come out of this for you guys?
Oh man, I have mostly silver linings.
Yeah, do tell.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of like a self-reliant lone wolf introvert type person. And so like being forced to stay at home all day and like the rest of society is legally obligated to leave me alone, that's like good news for me. Like,
Yeah.
oh, people, if people want to contact me, they have to email me first. Great.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there have been some challenges. I will say that like some of my work responsibilities kind of went out the window. There were some things that were like I had kind of put on the back burner because I've taken on like a sort of a new role this academic year, and I was trying to keep my head above water with like the really important stuff. And there were a bunch of other things that I hadn't really attended to for a while. And conveniently for me, there was a global pandemic, and suddenly nobody really cares about some of that back burner stuff. And the really important things that I had been focusing on are the only things now that really matter. So um, yeah, like it kind of took some work off my plate.
That's great. That's really great.
Kind of convenient.
Mm-hmm.
What's inconvenient is the kids are not in school, so there's some like cabin fever there. And so it's hard to like, I mean, it was hard to like balance work and life before, and now there's just like literally no boundary between them.
Right. Right.
Now it's
Yeah.
just a door.
Yeah. If you have a door.
Door is
Yeah.
shut. It's that one. Yeah, that one is closed. There's something happening in here that shan't be viewed by anybody but me.
Yeah, if that works, except that they're on the other side of that door.
Yeah.
As does your partner in crime, knowing that she probably wants your help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got stuff.
Yeah. Does that door lock?
Nope.
No, that's too bad.
Yeah, we found that out. Apparently, only one door of all the bedrooms got a lock on it. So.
Is it yours or is it one of the kids?
It's ours, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good.
And is that lock on the outside?
I'm gonna keep these two away. Yeah, no. I think a positive for me is one, realizing that I can still do pretty much all of what I do for work without too much of an impact, and to realize that I do like meeting up with people, and I work better with other interaction. So that's not the best, but we're all figuring it out. But keep in touch with other people. And I don't know, there was a time, at least in that first week, that was kind of cool, where everybody didn't know what to do. So any reaching out to friends or anything was like welcome, because they're like, yeah, I don't have anything going on. Like the next 2 months is canceled, and I'm kind of getting tired of 2:00 beers. So, well, yeah, what do you got? Come on. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, like reconnecting with you guys and all the college friends from literally 10 plus years ago, even some of them. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's been a welcome, unexpected benefit of this thing. Is I think a lot of people are reconnecting, and meanwhile, this technology has existed for easily a decade plus, right?
Yeah.
And people are like, well, I guess we're forced to do it. Hey, let's do this thing now with other people. And so I think that's been a welcome result of this whole thing. In our household, we are saving so much money by not going out to eat. Admittedly, we love going out to eat, and we don't love that we're not able to still, but it is pretty good for the old piggy bank.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we're just saving up so that we can go out to eat every day, all day when this thing ends.
All the meals
to make up for it. That's right.
If any of the restaurants are still around to be reopened when
all those delicious chains
So
kinda-
I
Yeah.
actually, that's actually one of my sub questions to the question of what the fuck's going on is which industries, if you feel like this would happen, I do, spoiler alert, which industries will totally collapse because of this thing and not survive?
Hmm.
Do you think that's a possibility, I guess?
they'll go away entirely.
Or which ones will be suffered the most? Or what will change?
I don't know that I've got a particular industry in mind as much as like a particular slice of the like business pyramid,
Mhm.
if you want to call it that. Because I mean, I live in a town that's that like had a heyday and peaked and then ended up kind of uh, reaching what I think has been like a sort of a commercial low point in the last couple of decades. But within the last 2 or 3 years, it's become a little bit of like a hot place for like small businesses to start up. And we've got a cidery and a distillery, and there's a brewery that was set to open like right around now. And I'm concerned that some of these places either like never got to open and never will, or were, just getting off the ground and won't survive this. I think it's like the small business, like, people who had kind of invested their life savings and now it's just gone up in smoke.
Yeah.
Yeah, small business owners. I can speak to that. So yeah, within the first couple of weeks, I lost 3 clients. Boom. And I was like, okay, see you later.
Mm-hmm.
It was shocking. Well, I don't know, shocking. It happened pretty close, one after the other, after an initial week of, oh, everything should be fine. But then I realized some people financially are being pinched. Not everyone has job security necessarily. And I thought, oh, I can do all my stuff from home, which is true. As far as the logistics of my business, nothing has changed. Absolutely nothing. So I thought, hey, I'm pretty COVID resistant,
Mm-hmm.
except for the whole thing around my clients. If they're not, well, then I sure as shit am not either.
Yeah.
So I am, before I go too far down that sad path, I am happy to report I have regained that number of clients back. So, I'm in a pretty good spot because I'll also say this time is pretty good for people in my industry, for people who are looking for some level of certainty, right? And figuring out what the hell to do with themselves. I come in pretty handy. So the challenge, of course, is the people not being super eager to open their checkbooks during this time also, depending on what level of governmental support they're receiving. So, as far as, back to my initial question of what industries, I'm just curious what the restaurant industries will look like. I don't think they'll go away entirely, but, they might look very different, depending on, ones that have had to shut down or will have to shut down over the course of this. I think as an industry, restaurants make sense. And so I would think that a bunch will be built up or start up when the time comes. So as an industry, I don't think it'll go away. But in the immediacy for some of these specific restaurants, I think, unfortunately, there might be a lot of them shutting down.
Yeah. There have been quite a few locally here that have shut down altogether. And the shitty thing is, yeah, you can't just hit pause and wait for them to come back so that, whenever we're all back to work and we want to go to that place again.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them are one-offs. They're not chains. So, they started laying people off. And yeah, I don't necessarily know how useful everybody getting $1,200 is and what you're gonna do with it that's gonna like save the world.
Yeah.
Especially whenever, if you wanted to go and spend it on stuff at a restaurant or store that is
It
closed.
isn't available, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you're not working, sure, it's helpful to pay your bills. It'd be cool if we can just pause everything for a while until everybody gets their shit together and nobody's sick and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question that I have for you guys. Maybe you can sort of talk me down off of this. But yeah, I've been wondering about the stimulus money, because I am kind of like you're suggesting, Sean, curious about like what exactly it's supposed to do. I mean, certainly there are people for whom getting $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 is like, I mean, that's a paycheck or two even. I mean, that, that might be enough to keep, certain people afloat because they've lost their jobs or been, furloughed or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seems to me that there's like a bunch of people out there, honestly, myself included, for whom like having that money and not having that money like doesn't really make that much of a difference. Like, hey, great, like thanks government for giving me that. But I don't know, like I sort of, for some reason, I was like, what popped into my head was this idea of like, there's like, let's imagine that there's like this ravine and we need to find a way to get across it. And like one of the plans that somebody came up with was to just like dump truckloads of cash into it until you've created enough of a pile that you can then walk across. And like, I'm thinking like, surely there's a more efficient way, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh yeah.
that we could, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the supporters of the idea don't use that metaphor.
Stop. Yeah, like if you just stop the requiring of the outflux of cash for those who have momentarily lost the influx of cash, fucking stop it for a minute until everybody's back doing the same shit that they are. Just sure, if they need some cash to go buy groceries, I think that's required, and we should do something there. But yeah, like most of all of the payments that are being made that are crippling folks are probably 70+% just interest, which is pure profit for someone else. Student loans, mortgages, rent, whatever the fuck. If that guy that's not getting his rent because all of his rental units, those folks can't pay the rent, so he's not getting any income. Okay, so what does he need? Does he need to pay the mortgage on the house that he's living in? Well, if you pause that too, and everybody just has a little bit of cash just sitting around so they can fucking eat until everybody stops killing each other from a disease, and then we'll all just resume. I know that a bunch of businesses are getting impacted and stuff, but yeah, I would agree that throwing a seemingly arbitrary, very small amount of cash at a bunch of people doesn't really do any good whatsoever.
Yeah, it's interesting how they came up with that number, right? But
I did. You see, $2 trillion. Like, I don't know and don't care and don't think that we're actually going to receive any of it. And I'm in the same boat as Professor. Like, I would gladly give it to someone else, even if we were supposed to get it. Because
can I get that on? Good, we're recording that. You would gladly.
I'm fortunate enough that my job is maintained.
Yeah.
I'm not impacted, and my wife thought that she was going to be impacted because most of the projects that she works on were paused indefinitely. But he's got enough stuff to keep hours flowing too. So it's a little bit less, but I mean, we were doing fine. So I don't want it or need it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a fuck ton of people that are in that same position, but are in also the same position to say, George, if I tripped on the sidewalk and found $1,200, I'm not going to throw it away, but I also didn't need that to not die this month.
Yeah.
I was encouraged to know that they had like sort of thought it through to some extent, that like, what is it? Anybody who makes over $99,000 gets nothing, like, and it sort of tapers from there. That like Jeff Bezos isn't getting $1,200.
Sure. Yeah. Thank goodness.
Right. Yeah. So if you don't need it, you don't take it, right?
Oh, I didn't receive anything that gave me the option to say yes or no,
Right.
I think.
Nor did I. I did my census though.
Good for you.
That's good. Stand up, be counted.
Yeah.
I was sitting at the time, but point taken.
Yeah. Okay. I haven't done that. Have I missed the window to do that? I'm just waiting for someone to come to my door like I usually do.
Oh, I think well, yeah, that was like sort of the backup plan, right? Like if you didn't respond right away, I think they were gonna like, well, I don't know how the pandemic
Track you
affects
down.
that, but
Yeah.
Yeah. We've gotten several envelopes. They keep getting smaller, more serious in tone.
Yeah.
I
Well,
need
I
to
also know I have someone else in my household that fills out that stuff. So
no.
good.
I have a feeling that's what happened.
It seriously takes like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like really very quick.
Yep. Still here. Check. So what are some things you've been doing to that have perhaps changed that is a changed behavior that you didn't used to do that you may or may not continue once this thing lifts? Maybe like, hey, I kind of like this thing.
Yeah, I've been sleeping in and I don't have to commute anymore. So whenever the end of the day rolls around, all I have to do is walk out of the office and I'm home, and it's pretty fucking cool. Yeah. So all of the downside melts away whenever my commute is 6 seconds long.
Yeah. Yeah, I would sort of second that. I mean, I realized how long my commute was. It hadn't even really occurred to me, but I sort of like added it up a couple of weeks ago and realized, yeah, I'm because I was it occurred to me that I was like, man, it seems like there are just more hours in the day. And then I kind of tallied up like, oh yeah, like I do spend like 2 hours a work day just kind of like moving from place to place.
Yeah.
It adds up.
Yeah.
So what's going to shift, if anything?
You know, I don't know if for my industry it's going to change a whole lot, but I hope that a bunch of the folks start to say like, so why is it that you require me to come in? Because I'm doing
Seems
this.
like we were able to figure out a way to make this virtual, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's happening everywhere.
It's
I know.
it's funny because it's like, well, so I work in higher education, and I mean, my university had to transition to teaching all of the courses remotely uh, via this piece of software that we are currently using. And yeah, I mean, it's funny because it was like, oh yeah, like you could just have a university that's online, like those universities that are online,
Right.
like that's a thing that people do.
Precisely.
They get like laughed about, right?
Yeah. That's
Oh,
exactly that's what my wife does. She works for one of those universities. It's like, yeah, they got it. They're pretty COVID resistant right now.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think the one area where there is maybe some cause for concern when it comes to higher education is that right now it looks like there are a whole bunch of international students that may not come back, or at least not immediately. So like when the next academic year starts in the fall for us here in the fall, there's a chance that, I mean, as far as the university is concerned, there will be a big chunk of revenue that's not coming in if those students don't come back.
Right.
And then that could mean, do faculty and staff lose their jobs because, you don't need as many people to teach courses with fewer students and things like that. So,
Well, I have a feeling they'll be instituting the online system before they start losing too much money.
yeah. And I think actually it might be to some benefit that there's a pretty good chance that the like restrictions and social distancing will not have completely gone away by that time anyway. So it may be that like classes have to be taught remotely, and so that may actually help to just encourage people to say, oh yeah, like I'll still enroll like normal because it's just going to be continuing what we've already been doing.
Right. I'm wondering like what industry is just dying to get back that is completely unnecessary, but has been like professional sports. I'm sure is just so fucking mad right now. They have to cancel the start of baseball, whatever else, bad like the playoffs
Yeah.
or college basketball.
Yeah. College basketball. Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet Vince McMahon is pretty upset these days because he had started up his XFL,
Restarted it, yeah.
his new football. Yeah. Restarted it. And I mean, by all accounts was doing fairly well, but this pretty much torpedoed their season and maybe their existence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure.
And I
there's a
imagine that
bunch of-
cost a couple of dollars
Precisely.
to create a professional football league.
Right, right. Money that is gone, that is
Yeah.
not recoverable, I would imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know that, gyms and these personal fitness and CrossFit, things like that, places that rely upon people showing up in person are struggling mightily. And I know I've seen a bunch of them try to go virtual, but
Yeah.
it's really hard to continue to charge people when there's so much available online for free.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, if it's not live, it's probably available someplace.
Right. And even the live stuff, right? Unless it's individually tailored, I don't know how you compete with the pre-recorded stuff that's just out there.
Yeah.
Right. That industry is huge as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Or the things like what is it, Peloton, like companies like that were sort of prepared and even like poised maybe to essentially, capitalize on the fact that like all of a sudden now there are all these people who are looking for, like virtual trainers. And yeah, I mean, it's funny. I think that's another part of this that's sort of like darkly funny, that there's all these things that it's like, yeah, did you know that you could do this online? Like, did you know you could take a virtual tour of the San Diego Zoo? And like the San Diego Zoo is like, yeah, we've had that webcam of the baby bald eagles for like 20 years.
Right. Right.
like, did you know you could like transmit valuable information via the internet?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. A lot of people are becoming woke to all the wonderful features that the internet has to offer.
I wonder what damage it'll do to, or just awakening to how much importance there is in just social interaction in general, and how I don't know that it'll take all that long before it's going to be weird that first probably 2 weeks when everybody says like, yeah, you're allowed to go back outside. I don't know. We were watching a show. Had someone just reaching out to shake somebody else's hand, and my knee-jerk reaction was like, "No, don't touch him. He might have the Rona." It's like it's fucked up.
Right. What's
Did you just
everyone's
call
initial?
it the Rona?
Yes, that's what we call it in my house. It's easier.
Is it?
I don't wanna get
Personalizes it.
Rona, fellas. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes it less scary. It's more approachable.
Right. But
Yeah. What are
it's-
those initial reactions going to be when people meet face to face? Like, do they go
Yeah.
right back to handshake, or do they have to make up for lost time and just immediately start making out with people? Just what are they going to do? Are they
Or
going
is
to
it
be?
just elbows from now on?
Oh yeah.
Maybe that's it, right? Is that a new shift? Better safe than sorry. I mean, you have a slice of the population that already would have preferred that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'd be okay with that if I never have to have another one of those like awkward handshakes where you don't get the grip quite right and the other person sort of shakes your fingers instead of your hand.
Ugh.
If I never have to have another one of those again, I won't be sorry. I won't be
Yeah,
sad.
shaking the dead fish. Those are the worst.
Yeah. Or like the super wet palm.
Ugh. Right. Like, where did you just have this? That would be interesting. Like, yeah, what things will never be the same? I I hope a big part of it is like tech companies allowing their employees to just work from home. Selfishly, because I work in a town with a bunch of tech employees, and the first couple of weeks when I was still commuting and none of them were, it was amazing. So even if if we can maintain that, uh, that'll be good.
Yeah. I wouldn't even say it's just tech companies, right? It's all
Yeah.
companies that are finding ways to be virtual.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I think so, well, we sort of already sort of touched on this, but yeah, I mean, a lot of what I do involves face-to-face interaction. I teach courses in person. I have meetings in person, but I mean, it shouldn't be surprising, but it is sort of striking that like, oh yeah, I mean, so much of this can be done remotely. Like, I work with colleagues. I email back and forth with colleagues that I happen to be down the hall from them when we're in our offices. But I mean, that distance is irrelevant. Like, we could be in our homes and email each other just as easily. Like, my computer doesn't need to be in close proximity to yours in order for us to do what we do.
Well, it's like when we were in college and we would IM each other from across the room, right?
Right.
Yeah.
IM stands for instant message for anybody who's listening
In the future.
In Christmas 2022.
Yeah.
Wait, was it messenger, right?
Messenger.
Was it messaging or messenger?
It was
Messenger.
AOL Instant Messenger. A lot of people called it AIM.
AIM, that's right. Yeah.
Goodness, we're dating ourselves.
And you'd have like that one away message that was like song lyrics or just like some sort of passive aggressive like cry for attention.
Yes.
That's right.
Most of them were that.
Yeah. And it wasn't like Facebook where you would do that like every day, several times a day. You would just have the one.
Sure.
Yeah.
You would just put it up once.
Mm-hmm.
And it was meant for one person, but everybody else would be like, ooh, I bet he's mad at her or him. Man, look at those brooding, passive-aggressive lyrics.
That's right.
Yeah. That's right.
Goodness.
Well, you can still be passive aggressive in the.
Gosh, I hope that doesn't go away. Yeah.
Yeah.
What, being passive?
Yeah.
That'll never change.
Although I don't know, I'm finding that that's come into play a lot, being in the same under the same roof nonstop with my spouse.
Yeah.
A lot more passive aggressiveness. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of redirected anger.
That's right.
Yeah.
Got to find ways to release, and you can't get too far.
Nope.
I find that with my kids, it's not so much like the passive aggressive as much as it's just aggressive.
Yeah. I notice my son yelling an awful lot these days.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't know if
acutely
that's
aware
ever-
of how much they scream.
Yeah.
You guys make a lot of noise.
Is that normal? Yeah, half the time if I'm hearing it from like the other side of a wall or maybe on another floor, I don't know if it's cause for concern or if it's just, oh, we're just playing. Oh, neat. I thought that you were trying to murder each other and you're just playing house.
Well, either way, my door's closed, so don't bother me.
That's right.
Right. Read the non-existent sign.
That's right. And it doesn't lock, so don't try it.
Yeah, you probably saw somebody peeping in and thinking, you still on the computer? Yes.
Yeah.
I'm social distancing. Leave me alone.
That's right. 6 feet. You see the blue tape on the floor?
Right.
Do they do that at places around you guys? That's what the grocery store has. They have like blue painter's tape.
Right. I guess that's what they have at ours as well. I don't know. I haven't been out in over 3 weeks, so it's nice. But my neighborhood apparently isn't reacting any differently, other than to say I see a lot more people than I ever did.
Because they got time to go outside.
Yeah, they're at home to be outside, apparently.
Yeah. We saw a bunch of families that usually we don't see outside using some of the trails, hiking, walking, biking trails that are just in our neighborhood. And yeah, because they're stuck at home.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, oh, we're all not sick, right? Okay, cool. Let's go.
Yeah, apparently the trails around here have been flooded with people, just way more than are typically out there. I'm hearing this secondhand because I typically am one of the fewer ones out there normally. And I've decided, you know what, I probably shouldn't be doing that. But apparently a lot of other people are choosing differently and being outside. I don't know if they're assuming that no one else is going to be, or they don't give a shit. They're just going to go out because they need to get out of the house somehow.
Yeah, my reasoning was, well, plants clean the air, right? We should be fine. I didn't even think about, there was somebody that talked about if you're going out and doing like bike riding or anything mildly or very dangerous during this time, even if there's not a bunch of other people around, it's probably not a good idea, because if you do get hurt, then you're going to have to go to the hospital, and there's a bunch of other folks that might need that, and you could have avoided it, where maybe they could have, whatever, but we need to preserve the space. So that's another big part of this that I hadn't even thought of. It's not just about me not getting sick, it's about us not getting hurt and taking a bed that someone else might need way more than we do, because we could have stayed at home where it's safe. And I decided to go ride down steep hills and a bunch of fucking rocks and fall down and break something. So.
Yeah, I was just talking to somebody the other day who kind of said something about like, I was cooking dinner, and it suddenly occurred to me while I was like chopping up vegetables, like, man, I mean, I normally don't want to cut my finger while I'm cooking dinner, but like now, like, really don't cut my thumb off while I'm, chopping potatoes or something.
Yeah, cereal for everyone. I don't just avoid all that. I just had a thought, completely unrelated, only slightly related. What if the internet went down?
Dude, I'd be so excited. Just because it would take away the expectation.
Of what?
Of needing to show up and still try to be present and accounted for your
for work.
Yeah, I guess whenever early March, California had set the shelter in place, and it was 3 weeks. Everybody's working from home, and being in Washington, which is kind of ground zero for the whole thing, at least as far as we know, in the U.S., and we weren't doing anything like that. It was odd and kind of irritating. Like, wait a second, why is the place where all of this was first discovered not acting in the same way? Why are we still having to come to work? I don't know. It was a confusing time. I don't know if I was just looking for like an easy out and I shouldn't have to come to work or some bullshit like that. But yeah, if the fucking internet broke, that I think would be the true test of people's ability to do real social distancing and to really understand what's happening.
I think we fucked.
We've nerfed it so bad because we can do what we're doing right now. I mean, we did this, whenever there wasn't a pandemic, and we're able to do it now, which is cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, every fucking thing would shut down. And
yeah, everything. Absolutely everything at this point.
Just, like, some sick part of me would just want to see what would happen. I just want to watch people with the comfort in knowing that it's there squirm.
Well, the fact that, I guess folks have experienced some bandwidth issues, the slowing down in some areas. I haven't in any of my interactions or anything I've dealt with, which is still shocking to me. I would have assumed that everything would have slowed way the hell down, which also caused me to wonder, what's that, maybe there's a 6-7G out there now, and they're just not tapping into it. They're holding back. But yeah, I wonder, how much, will we hit a breaking point?
I have my fingers crossed for the elimination entirely of data caps from internet service providers, because data caps exist, or at least we were told that they exist because they wanted to make sure that everybody had equal access to the same experience on the internet. And if there were folks that were abusing it, taking up all the bandwidth, that not everyone would be able to have the same speed. So that was the justification for it. But now they've temporarily lifted it for 2 months. And we're stress testing the fuck out of it with everybody working from home and doing this kind of stuff that never used to. Netflix, Pornhub, whatever it is, everybody's streaming everything nonstop.
Yeah.
I just got an email from Xfinity like yesterday that said, our system is solid and in place, and we're seeing no, adverse effects of all the stress tests. They
Yeah.
didn't call it, but it's like, okay, so what happens in July or August, whenever things go back to normal or whatever the new normal
Mhm.
is? I know it's a dumb thing. That's something that pisses me off to no end, because it's an extra $50 a month for me, and it didn't exist where I used to live and moved here, and now it's like, here to fork over an extra $600 a year because I have people in my house all the time, working from home, streaming shit
Mhm.
all the time. So what's the excuse going to be then? I
Yeah.
don't know. I hope one positive that comes after all of this is done.
Yeah, admittedly, the three of us have a strong internet connection. Seemingly, there are parts of the country and certainly parts of the world, right, that don't.
Yeah.
Right, they don't have access to it, and then you have the part of the population that can't afford, because of loss of income, can't afford to continue paying whatever they were paying before. Right, just even where we used to live in northern New Hampshire, internet sucked up there. It really sucked. It wasn't for lack of money. It just, the infrastructure was
Right.
not prioritized. And so I'm seeing updates on social media from people who are like, it's all well and good if you have solid internet, but they don't. And that has an effect. Like, yeah, for work, but just life, right? Especially if you're expected to stay in place, like in a place like up there. Like, one of the benefits of living in that part of the country is that you have the great outdoors. Well, now you're not supposed to be going out into the great outdoors.
Yeah.
So it's going to be highlighting a pain point for those folks, and certainly for the other ones that never had internet to begin with, right? Other parts of the world. Actually, I wonder, some of these remote villages in some other countries, what effect has this had there?
I mean, those people already know how to build a fire and churn their own butter.
Right?
So, I mean,
Business as usual.
not having YouTube to tell them how to do it isn't gonna
All right, right, right.
I mean, I would hope.
Yeah, I would imagine that they would be smart enough instinctively that if someone got sick, they'd be like, yeah, no, stay in your hut. Don't go around the dude that got sick because he died. And then everybody that he kissed in like the past 3 days died shortly thereafter. So just don't fucking go outside for a couple days.
Everybody he kissed?
That's right. That guy, he kissed a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah,
Shouldn't have
Larry
kissed.
the Kisser.
that's right. Larry.
Oh, shit. I heard
Yeah.
something that someone was talking about the internet being a right just as much as like clean water these days. And I would imagine that in, I don't know, like technologically advanced countries, maybe it is. There's so much that relies on it now that like with schools being closed, that was a big part. They sent out a survey in our district that asked like, what devices do you own and what kind of internet connectivity do you have in your home to be able to support learning remotely? And we were fortunately able to check all the boxes. We've got computers, tablets, phones, and internet. That's pretty much all there is. And there is probably folks out there that can only check one of those boxes, maybe, and that's tough.
Right.
So you can't blanket say, "Oh, we're all just going to learn at home now," but should we require the people who can't afford it to be able to afford it to be able to do it now? So is that something that might change where, everyone has access to it? If you can afford it, good. If you can't,
Yeah.
provide it for you so that you can, because you shouldn't be excluded.
Where possible, right? I mean, we have the privilege of sending Joey to a private school where anyone going there basically has the means to provide a device for their child, a separate device.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not the ones who have 5 or 6 kids, but probably even so. But some of the public schools how do you require some of these things, you know, for some of the households where the kids are depending on schools for, in some cases, food,
Yeah, that was
right?
the one thing they kept our school open for, actually. There were 3 or 4 locations that they maintained breakfast and lunch serving for. I think they're still doing it, actually, because they recognize that that is a essential, like, folks' lives depend on the
Yep.
fact that these are.
Schools provide a lot
Yeah.
for families, for sure. Childcare certainly being one of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
During the regular school day, but also before school and after school care. And, um, and we could get a little dark here for a minute. What about households that aren't safe for children, aren't safe for
Yeah.
individuals, right? That are in abusive homes. Now they're
Mm-hmm.
being forced to be around those people longer.
Yeah, that's grim. Because
Yeah, that's how I wanted to end this episode.
Yeah. I mean, I was prepared to say something kind of cynical, but I mean, I think
you
you,
win.
I beat you to it.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I was gonna say, I agree with Sean that like the internet could or should, or at least that you could make the argument that it ought to be some kind of a right, a human right, but
Mhm.
same as water, and yet there are substantial portions of the Earth's population that don't have access to clean water easily.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we say it's a right, but what does that really mean? It still plays out with where you actually live. Did you win the birth lottery? Yeah. Okay, good.
yeah.
Good for you. Yeah.
You were born in California in the '60s, and your house is worth $7 million now. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think that like something that there's the potential for something good and lasting to come out of this, but yeah, I don't know. I'm reminded when I see those like memes that show people from the 1918 flu epidemic, and it's like, oh, this, we'll learn from this and this will never happen again. And yet here we are 100 years later.
Yeah. I hope so too. The one thing I do like about it is that it doesn't care of your background or where you live or what you were planning on doing. Everyone is affected in the exact same way, and it finally was something that I don't necessarily think that it's uniting folks, but at least it's hopefully eye-opening to the fact that I really think that we're all just guests, on the planet,
Yeah.
and it doesn't give a fuck if we're here or not.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of like, we think that we are entitled to certain things because we got comfortable. And in the end, yeah, is the internet a right? No, it's not right. That's ridiculous. It's amazing, and lots of us have it, but this sure as hell isn't a right. It's not essential to living. Clean water is essential to living. I would think that, yeah, if you're going to go on living, you should have access to it. It might be tough, uh, but yeah, I like that aspect of it, that it's affecting absolutely everyone on the entire planet in the same fashion, and we're all hopefully learning some kind of lessons, or maybe not, but there's at least the potential to learn.
Yeah. I don't know. I would agree with most of what you're saying, except for affecting us all in the same way. Right.
Yeah.
Because of some of the examples that we talked about. It's affecting all of us, which I think has given us opportunity to become more human and understanding of one another. Right.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, like if someone lost their job because of it, it's affecting that person much differently than it's affecting us.
Yeah.
I guess what I meant was that the fact that we're all being affected by the same
Totally.
thing.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
It sure seems to hate New Yorkers
Oh,
of late.
Right. Which is uniting all of us, isn't it?
yeah. New Rochelle.
That's right. It's finally proof that God also hates New York.
Take that, Jerry Seinfeld.
That's right. I think that's probably all we can say about that topic for the
Yeah,
time being.
that was pretty good. Well, it's good they air it out there, and just I'm sure everyone is talking about what is going on right now, and that's just our take. But
Mhm.
it's nice to share it with you guys.
Yeah, it's nice to reconnect with you guys.
Yeah.
Since this is something that we're all dealing with in the same way.
Yeah. It's affecting us all equally.
That's right.
Oh shit.
All right, gentlemen. A pleasure. Look forward to doing this next year.
Yeah, hopefully much sooner.
Yeah, well, we'll have a New Year's episode, right? This is
That's
our
right.
Yeah,
Christmas special.
Yeah.
post COVID 22. All right.
All right, boys.
See you guys.
Be well.
Until next
right.
time.
You too. See ya.
Bye.
Just guys hanging out.